Hello, good evening. Welcome to week 2 of the Premier League. This is Guns and Yellow Ribbons. We're going to look at all the games from Brighton versus Man United, Crystal Palace, West Ham, the Arsenal, Aston Villa, and the Liverpool game on Sunday. So we're going to look at all the games. Enjoy the show.
Welcome to another podcast by Guns and Yellow Ribbons. This is your Arsenal podcast by Arsenal fans for Arsenal fans. Enjoy the show.
Hello, guys. Good evening. Oh, that was a tough squeeze. We've all just finished work and all just getting in the door and had some food. And 7 o'clock on a Thursday. Whose idea was that? I wonder. Trevor, how are you?
Not as tough a squeeze as you had getting in that shirt.
Oh, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. I don't know if I get out of it.
Listen, yeah, I'm good, thanks, Phil. I've just walked in the door from work, so I've had no prep, just like much of the other lads. But we'll get through this. We'll be all right. Some of us have got charisma, and the others are called Fergus. So we'll be all right. You know what I mean? We're away. Let's go.
Absolutely. What people don't realise is I've got 1,559 words over 5 pages, colour-coded for different people to look at and know what we're going to talk to them about. And Dan, have you looked at any of it?
How many words did you say, Fergus?
1,559. So that means I'm gonna talk about 1,600.
You struggle with 2. How are you going to do that?
1,559, and he can read 3.
Yeah.
To be sure.
Have you looked at any of it?
I've looked at it. I've not read it, but I looked at it.
Okay. Alex, thankfully you helped me with some of the stats and stuff through work. But have you read it?
Nope. Didn't have time either. So you're going to be the only one on script today, and we're just going to be dragged along.
Brilliant.
Even the golden boy ain't having none of it tonight, Fergus Keating.
I've got live score open on the other screen, so I'll pretend I know what I'm talking about. We'll be fine. They'll never know.
Okay. Let's
go with the show.
That's fine. Before we do anything, what we decided to do last week is we predicted our results, and my illustrious assistant, the short one with the hat, has decided to put some slides together and do a league. You get over to you, Dan.
Well, I just thought it'd be nice to have a little league table and see how everyone did. And obviously, we need everyone to understand the rules, so put the rules onto a little slide. So point for a right result and 3 points for a correct scoreline. But there's been a bit of underhanded bits that I've seen a few people do, which I don't like. So what we've also added in is a special rule where you can have hidden bonus points or sanction points if people are a little bit too outside the box. So we do have our first deduction this week for some foul play.
So you need to clarify these rules, and what are these rules, and how can I get a bonus point?
You can get a bonus point by doing something that makes me smile.
Put that shirt on again.
There you go. I just got 3 points.
I don't know, mate. I don't know. Not enough. And I, as soon as I said that, I regretted saying that because I can imagine it.
Instant regret.
Yeah.
Right. Let's go on to the
Don't
next
forget,
bit.
I can deduct points as well.
Okay. So last week, let's go through the results. We had Man United versus Fulham was 1-0. Ipswich, Liverpool was 2-0 to Liverpool. Arsenal Wolves 2-0 to Arsenal. Everton, Brighton 3-0, and it could have been 4. Newcastle, even with a red card, 1-0 against Southampton. Forest drew against Bournemouth. West Ham and Villa, I thought was going to be a 2-2 draw, and I saw the second half, but Villa won that 2-1. Brentford versus Palace was 2-1 to Brentford. Chelsea City 2-0 to City, and Leicester Tottenham was a draw. I'm going to get a Red Bull. Anybody need a Red Bull?
Can we split that into 2? Because I can't see that. I need a magnifying glass.
Well, I'll read it to you. What you'll see at the bottom there, Trev, is Fergus got minus 10 points because he was the only one that predicted a Tottenham win, and we don't accept that on here. So he's got minus 10 points. So Fergus is sitting at the bottom as -3 at the minute in the league table. So he's got a bit of work to do.
Right.
I thought you said you did well, Ferg.
Yeah, I did well, but I don't believe in like dictatorships like Dan's. I believe in my dictatorship.
Oh.
So the league table, according to Dan,
Hey,
Alex is top on it.
Week.
Go on. Alex is top on 11. Dale is on 9, although I think he might be on holidays. Dan is on 8. Trev's on 7, same as myself. So, Trevor, you and I are level on 7 points.
I thought I'd add in a few extra little bits of stats to see, because Alex actually got 3 bang-on results. So, I think this week, Alex, you need to back yourself with a few little score bets, mate.
I should do, yeah.
I was the most accurate with results with 6. And surprisingly, well, unsurprisingly, every single one of us got the most points across the board for the Arsenal Wolves fixture because we won. And the most inaccurate was Everton Brighton. I think not a single one of us got a point on that one. So we clearly wasn't very good with that result. And I thought I'd add in a little fumble of the week for Fergus for predicting the Spurs win, because that won't happen again, will it, Ferg?
Love a fumble. Love a fumble. Absolutely love a fumble. So listen, let's get on to our first game. Alex, I'll come to you on this one. It's Brighton versus Man United. It's a 12:30 kickoff on TNT Sports. Brighton have won the last 4 Premier League games against Manchester United, though they did lose the most recent meeting at home on the final day in 23-24. So that was a 2-0. That doesn't make any sense. I've said there. Brighton have won 4 of the last 5. Sorry, it would help if I could read. 4 of the last 5 Premier League games.
Hang on, folks. 1,100 words. He's got into 6 and he's had a stumble.
2022, 3, 4.
Take two. Right, so they won 4 out of the last 5, except for the last time they met at the Amex Stadium, where Brighton lost 2-0. Alex, what's your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I think it's probably one of the most interesting games of the next game week. Brighton started off really, really well in the first game against Everton, which they won 3-0. And they've brought in loads of attacking talent and some really good players. Minte, which I think I mentioned on the preview last time, did well, set up a goal, and then had to get substituted during halftime because of a concussion. So hopefully he'll be back for the United game. And I think United, on the other hand, they won as well, but didn't really impress me too much, and still showed some of their usual weaknesses, especially in midfield. I don't think their midfield is good enough to compete for top 4 with Casemiro, Mount, and Mainu. I think Mainu is a brilliant player, but Casemiro, he's only getting older, and Mount, I know he's been injured a lot, but he hasn't really impressed me in the United shirt. And defensively, I think Masraoui did well. He started against Fulham. And then De Ligt, who they've brought in as well, he came on as a sub. So I think it'll be an interesting game. I think Brighton will win 3-1 against Man United.
I was going to say, before you do your prediction, none of these games they've met 14 times, and they've never ended in a draw. That's the second longest run Man United have ever played against a team. Wigan is the only other team that they've never finished on a draw. That's 16. James Milner is also appearing for Brighton. He signed for Brighton, and he's now holds a record appearance for most Premier League campaigns, 23. Having been on the winning side 11 of his 35 appearances against Man United. Only Kyle Walker beating Man United more with 12 times. So what have you gone? 3-1 to Brighton?
Yes, mate.
Well done, Alex. I thought you summarised that really well.
Thank
said,
you.
Alex.
Thank you.
Great
Trev.
words, mate. Yeah.
Trevor, what's your score prediction on this one? Any brief thoughts?
I think Brighton will beat Brighton. I think Brighton are a better side than Man United. Man United can close the game up, but I think Brighton will score. I'm going to go 1-0 to Brighton.
1-0 to Brighton. And Dan, your thoughts?
I think this is a really tricky one, because it's difficult this sort of stage of the season. Do does pre-season form actually really count towards things? But I think Brighton have looked pretty good. But on the other hand, United last year and continuing this year, they just seem to be able to nick results. So I've sort of gone in the middle and gone for 1-1 here because I don't think I can pick a winner.
Okay. I've gone like Alex. I've gone 3-1 to Brighton on this one. I thought Brighton looked really, really, really good against Everton away. Yes, Everton aren't a great side, but for Brighton to come back and do what they've done, they could have had a fourth goal as well if it wasn't for a really tight offside. Yep.
I've just got a fun fact to round it off the game because you mentioned James Milner, and Brighton, they've got a really young manager, Fabian Hürzeler, and their manager, he was 9 years old when James Milner made his Premier League debut.
Yeah, I know. He wasn't even born when the Premier League existed. He's 31, so yeah, it's absolutely unreal.
Crazy.
Trevor, we're going to look at Crystal Palace versus West Ham. They played 26 times. The last time they met last season, Crystal Palace won at Palace 5-2, and it was a draw at the London Stadium. Both teams have scored against each other 14 times in league meetings between Crystal Palace and West Ham. Only Fulham and Man City have had more. Trevor, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, you've just done it. I thought I was doing that one, and you've just done it. There's nothing more to say, is there? Before the show, you said, Trevor, I want you to do West Ham United and Crystal Palace, please. All right, mate, no problem. And then you've just done it.
Well, you just said you didn't read any of it.
What's the point of you being a bully? I've got it all here on the telly next to me. What's the point? You just like the sound of your own voice, didn't you? Hey? Fergus, you're no good. You're no good. Listen, it's interesting to see that in the comments, right? Everybody thinks that, most people think that Brighton are going to be Man United, which is interesting, isn't it? It's not happened many times before. I think Fergus just said that Crystal Palace have won the last couple of home Premier League meetings against West Ham, and I can't see any reason why it's going to be any different. I think that I think West Ham are going to struggle this year. I really do. And I think Crystal Palace are going to be a bit of a better side. So I can see Crystal Palace winning the game and making it 3 in a row against West Ham at Selhurst Park. I can't see where the danger is. Noble playing, or is he injured, boys?
Noble for West Ham. He doesn't play anymore.
What do you mean?
For 2 seasons.
No, who am I thinking of?
Nolan.
Bowen.
Jared Bowen.
We're talking about Kevin Nolan then.
But Bowen was fit the last game. Yes, he did play in the last game. And they've got a new German striker. Is it how do you pronounce his name?
Füllkrug.
Yeah, they got him, who didn't get a start and didn't even come on in the game. They played Antonio on Saturday. So be interesting. I thought personally, Trev, I thought they had a good transfer window, and I was hoping to see more from West Ham in the first game against Villa, and I thought they were pretty poor.
West Ham were poor, but then a lot of teams are going to look poor against Villa this season because Villa are a damn fine side, and they've, I'm not going to go on it. We talked about it on Monday. We're a damn fine manager, and they're going to shine this season. So yeah, I can understand that West Ham will have easier games than they did against Villa, but looking at how they finished last season and what they've done, I just think they're going to struggle a bit. I genuinely do, and I think that Palace are going to beat them 2-0. To be honest,
2-0 to Palace. Okay, Dan, your thoughts on this and prediction, please.
Yeah, pretty similar to you. I actually think West Ham's had a really, really good window. I just think they're going to take a bit of time to settle, but I think the 2 centre half they purchased really good, wide man and centre forward, which they needed, and they've actually got a pretty decent midfield 3 now. But I just think it's going to take them 3 or 4 weeks to bed in. So for that reason, gone 2-1 Palace. I think Palace still look a good side. Just interesting how unsettled they are with the centre halves, one being sold and one sort of rumoured to leave. So,
Alex,
I'm actually leaning towards a West Ham win, but I'll go with a draw. But I was really surprised that Palace actually lost against Brentford because I'm not really betting on Brentford having a good season. But yeah, it's interesting with their centre halves. The Danish centre half Joachim Andersen just got sold back to his old club Fulham, and Mark Gahey looks like he's on his way out as well. So yeah, it's huge question marks for Crystal Palace. So I'm going with 1-1.
You're going with 1-1. Like you, I was surprised to see that Palace lost to Brentford. I thought Palace had a really good end to the last season. I thought they were on a bit of a roll. Yes, they had lost. Who's the guy who went to Munich?
Elise.
Yeah, they'd lost him, and there's this talk about Gay and other players, Neze. West Ham, as I said, I thought they had a good window, but it's a derby, it's away. I think West Ham will try hard, but I think it's going to be a 1-1 draw as well. So I've gone for a draw on that one. Dan, we're going to come to you. Fulham versus Leicester. Leicester had a really good, had a very poor game from the little bit I saw against Tottenham on Monday night. Tottenham, by all accounts, could have been 4-0 up at halftime, probably 7 opportunities on target, and absolutely battered. But Jamie Vardy came out and he had a Red Bull, and he explained how many titles Tottenham had won in opposed to them. So how do you think this Leicester side will get on against Smith Rowe and Iwobi and Leno?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, that Leicester side, they nicked a point, but I'm very glad they did. But I think they're an awful side. I think they're one of the teams that's going to go straight back down. They've got, I think Daka's injured as well, and obviously Vardy's barely had a free season. Smash and grab point for them against Spurs. So I can't really see them doing too well against Fulham. I think Fulham, again, are another side that could do really well this year. I think they could potentially push for a European place. They bought well. I know they sold Palhinha in the middle, but they had Lukic that can come in and replace him, got Smith Rowe, and they've just signed, I don't know if he'll be ready in time, but the French midfielder from Lyon. So, yeah, Anderson as well, as you just said, coming from Palace to Fulham. I think they're a pretty solid team, especially at home. The only thing that's quite surprisingly I looked at was they've not won any of their last 5 games on the first game of the season at home, their first home game. So be interesting to see if they do it this year. But I think Fulham will walk over Leicester this year, and I think it'll be a 3-0 win.
Yeah, they haven't lost 2 consecutive defeats in 17 Premier League games, and that was 2019 season and 2021 season. Trevor, what's your thoughts on this? Jamie Vardy, 37, became the oldest Premier League scorer to score on match day 1, and the only other player 37 plus to score the Premier League was Ronaldo in May 2022.
I'm finding this game quite interesting. Firstly, Vardy has always nosed me off. I've never had a lot of time for Vardy, mainly because he blew us out when Wenger wanted to sign him, if I'm honest. So I'm a bit fed up with that. But he went right up in my estimations against Tottenham, right up in my estimations. He gave the fans a bit of stick back, and it wasn't abusive. It was just a fact he gave them back. I'm looking at Postecoglou here, and I'm thinking, oh my God, is this going to be another grave in the Tottenham season, of a manager? They've got this habit of finishing good managers, haven't they? I mean, the list gets longer and longer, and looking at Postecoglou, the way he had his head down after the first game of the season, I'm thinking, wow, he's that demoralised this early in the season. They've not lost at the end of the day, and he's that demoralised. There's something going on, is there? I don't know. Who knows, But it'd be worth watching that, see what goes on. I think that Fulham are a decent side, and I rate Leicester a bit higher than that, more highly than Dan. I think Leicester will be all right this season. I really do. Fulham, we love the fact Fulham have got these ex-Arsenal players, but I can see it being a really good game at Fulham. And I've gone 1-1, Fergus.
1-1. Dan, can you remind me what you said your prediction was?
3-0 Fulham.
3-0 to Fulham. Alex, briefly, your thoughts on this game and your prediction.
Yeah, I think I'm very much with Dan on this one. I think Leicester will struggle this season. I think Fulham will have a really, really good season. I like their signings. So I'm going with a 2-0 Fulham win.
2-0. I've gone for the same. Have you been looking at my predictions? Because everyone so far has been almost the same.
You're stealing mine.
No, I'm not. I already put mine in first, and it's on the WhatsApp.
We can't be stealing your predictions. None of us have read it.
What's that?
So we can't be stealing your predictions. None of us have read it.
And that's true. They were on the WhatsApp yesterday. That was on the WhatsApp yesterday. Tottenham have won their first Premier League game at home. match in the last 5 of the last 6 seasons. With the only time they ever lost at home on the first home match was against Everton in 2020 and 21 season. Alex, Tottenham versus Everton. Last time they met, it was a 2-2 draw at Everton, and it was 2-1 at the Spurs.
Yeah, so we touched briefly on Tottenham's opening game, where they obviously dominated, especially in the first half, dominated possession, chances, and then Leicester grew more into the game in the second half and got an equaliser, and they couldn't really break through and get the win at Tottenham, fortunately. So, I think there's been a lot of hype around Tottenham in pre-season and so on, and with the signings they've made, Solanke coming in, but I looked at like the last 10 games after this previous game, and they've got a really poor record. The last 10 games, they've won 3 games, which was against Sheffield, Burnley, and Forest, so bottom half teams, and then they've drawn 2 games and they've lost 5 games. So they're actually in quite a poor run of form if you bring in the ending of last season into the equation. So I feel like he's got a bit of work to do, Ange, because I think Maddison did all right, but he had a poor season last season, I think so. And yeah, they need to gel the new attackers as well. And they've brought in some very young players in Bergvall and Archie Gray, who are good players, but how long will they take until they really get going? So I think Everton, though, they look really, really poor. Losing 3-0 at home. I know they got a red card, but they look really poor, and I think they will struggle. But you always know that they're going to give a good fight. But I just can't see Tottenham losing, and I can't see Everton getting a point. So I'm going with 2-1 Tottenham.
2-1 to Tottenham.
Is that a default -10 there?
Well, no,
it
could be more than -10 because you saw a -10 deduction and then you've still gone with them to win. So it might be a higher punishment, I think, this time, mate.
Absolutely.
Trevor, come on.
Right. Firstly, Barry Byrne, I've seen your score prediction for the Tottenham the Everton game, and we don't put those predictions on the screen. We refuse. We will not put those predictions on the screen, Barry. Listen, right. Everton are a strange team this year, right? Then I think that Everton are going to think they're not going to beat the top teams, right? So they're going to target games where they need to take points. I thought that they were that poor, and they're not going to challenge the top teams. They must be thinking there's certain clubs we need to take 3 points off to survive, and this is one of them. They're away at an average team, right, in Tottenham, and Tottenham have got a manager who's already got his head down. Christ knows what he said in training this week, but if he looks like that on the training field, he ain't going to be putting much of a message across to his players, is he? So I honestly think, right, I've not got all the facts and figures of these boys. I just talk crap, you know that. I honestly think that Everton are going to nick a win at Tottenham, but I don't think they're going to win by 1. I think they're going to win by 2. It's going to be the shock of the day, right? The shock of the day, Everton win at Tottenham 2-0. Or is it going to be a shock? Is it a shock? Who knows?
Dan?
I think Spurs have massively overpaid for Solanke. Bournemouth must be in 7th heaven, right? And what else have they done in previous seasons? I'm not worried for them. I'm happy that they're in the position they are, and I think that Everton will beat them.
Well,
Dan?
To be honest with you, Ferg, I've not given any bonus points yet, but I think I might have just heard a couple of bonus points come out of Trevor's mouth then by predicting an Everton win. So well done there, Trev. You might be back up the top of the league table by next week. I think Everton have got quite a few little niggles at the minute as well at the back, and they don't look a great side. But it was interesting what Alex said, because I'd already been thinking about Spurs, the way they finished the end of last season. They go on these cycles, and it's a continuous cycle for Spurs. Get a new manager, they're going to win the league, they're going to do this, they're going to do that. Then all of a sudden it falls apart, the wheels come off, they start to get in bad form, they drop down the table a bit, and then all of a sudden they have an awful season again, sack the manager, start again. And I've just got the feeling it will be the same thing. I don't really rate their team. I think Solanke, or whatever his name is going to be a complete waste of money. And
Solanke?
Yeah, Solanke. That's his new nickname. I just don't think they're a
So
great
wanky,
side, Spurs,
Tottenham.
so-
Oscar winter, hope to see the Pope. So wanky. Go on.
So I'm going to go for an upset, and I think Spurs might nick a point against Everton. I'm going to go for 1-1.
Oh,
1-1.
you heathen. You heathen swine.
Well,
Everton.
Everton.
Daniel.
The only reason I just think Everton are pretty poor at the minute, in all fairness. But the last few games that they've played against each other, they've all been close. It's been a 1-goal win or a draw. So I do think Everton, after their last game getting thumped, will tighten up a bit, and I think it'll be tight.
Well, Tottenham have scored more goals against Everton overall, 102, and at home 63, than they have against any other opponent. Everton did have 4 away wins on the bounce between October and December last season, but since then they've had they're winless in 11, and they have actually got the worst away record. Let me take off that banner. They got the worst away record in the league. They have not won in 9 away games this season. So I didn't want to do what take another penalty point. So I've gone for a 0-0 draw. As Donald
Hang
Trump
on.
would
So
say,
you've just
fake
admitted
news.
that you picked 0-0, but that's not actually your prediction. That's definitely.
I just said fake news. It's fake news.
Yeah, fake news.
Fake
That's
news.
definitely a deduction. You can't pretend not. to
Okay,
have
that's
a
fine.
win.
Okay,
You
okay,
can't
but then
win,
I'll
you
go.
can't win.
If I'm going to take a deduction, I might as well go 3-0 to Tottenham then, because
That's a bigger deduction. You've got a double deduction there now.
Fine, I don't care. I'm losing this clearly.
I'll tell you
Did you
what,
say
I might start 2 league tables. You've got Premier League and Championship, and I might relegate you already to a league on your own.
Did you just say what I think you said, Fergus?
You did.
Well, I cannot see Everton getting anything. I honestly cannot see Everton getting anything. I don't
I
think
can see
Tottenham
you
are that.
getting something if you carry on.
Well, you're in a really good mood, so you know that's clearly going to happen. But no, honestly, I don't see Tottenham as a great team at the moment.
Yeah.
But
Arnie's
you know,
nailed it.
yeah, well done, Arnie. I don't see Tottenham as a great team, but I also see Everton as much, much worse. It's a home game. It's the first home game of the season at the Tottenham Stadium. So I think, you know, they'll all be jumping around and all really, really delighted. I think the atmosphere there will be quite good. And I think, look, I hope for a draw. But yeah, I'm going to stick with my 0-0 draw.
Alex and Trev, are we demoting him to League One or League Two?
Hang on a minute.
Non-league.
Non-league. Yeah, I think it's worth non-league.
Demoted.
That's my
Demoted, Fergus.
Hang on. Right. Going next to be sure.
Hey.
Well up there then. What do you do?
Final
Trevor,
point, just to
go on.
emphasize like how poorly they finished. If you take away the first 10 games of last season, Tottenham, they would have finished 12th in the end of the season last season. So that kind of emphasizes how well they started, but also how poorly they finished off the season.
They won the league in August.
Exactly, yeah. Do you
I've
remember
got
they were
one
cheering
question
up?
for all of you? A genuine question for all of you. Will Postecoglou be manager at the end of the season for Spurs? Yes or no?
For me, seriously, no.
I think he will, but I don't think they're going to do well this season. I think they're just going to try and give him loads of time, like United are trying to do with Ten Hag. Even though Postecoglou will probably do worse than Ten Hag, I don't think he's going to win anything. So, but yeah, I think they're going to try and give him some time.
I don't know, to be honest. I would have thought it would be the first 2 international breaks will give us a clue. Like within that 10 games, if he's struggling, but who would Spurs go for there afterwards? You know, that there isn't many top managers out there. I'm not saying Ange is a top manager, but he's a good manager. You know, he's done well for his nation, and up north in Scotland, he's done well. He's good for their level.
I think he's too good.
I actually don't mind Postecoglou. But if he walks, who's going to want to go to Tottenham? They break manager after manager after manager after manager, and it can't all be the manager's fault, can it? They've
tried everything.
Managers, you know, off the top of your head, Pochettino. What's his name?
Mourinho,
Conte. Postecoglou now has got a great. The list is never ending of the managers they're broke. I wonder what goes on there. Anyway, listen, for those listening on audio, right? I'm not cracking any more jokes. I'm not having any more digs at Fergus because he just had his serious face on with me. And when he looks at me like that, I know I've done my job. He's hook, line, and sinker. I'm going to leave him be now. All right.
Right, Trevor. Let's talk Ipswich. Let's talk Kieran McKenna, 14th different manager to be into the Premier League since the 14th Premier League manager to play champions on their opening game at home in the league. What's your thoughts on this game?
Do you know what? I was just looking that I was going to do this about 10 minutes ago, and I've not really come up with anything that can make me say anything other than a Man City comfortable win. You know, Ipswich have just come up, yeah, but they're a side that didn't look that good against Liverpool. Their moments against Liverpool last week, their moments, but as soon as Liverpool lifted their game, which they only did on a couple of occasions, Liverpool banged a goal in. I thought so. I've not got a lot to say about this game, apart from the fact that I hope Ipswich don't get too outclassed, and because it's come early in the season for them, before they've had time to, to bed in and to hit the ground. They're away at Man City, and it's a bit unfair on them, really. They could have done with it being a bit later in the season, and I just hope they don't get beaten by too many and get humiliated, because it could be a massive score, this game. It really could.
What's your thoughts on the score then?
Do you know what, right? You're going to laugh here. I'm waiting for you all to laugh, right? But I'm going 7-0.
Wow.
It could happen.
It could happen.
I hope it doesn't happen. I really hope the Man City Ipswich go there and take a point. But we're here. All right, I do it more jovially than you lot. I take this a little lightheartedly more. But the fact of the matter is, I can't see Ipswich getting much of a kick of the ball, let alone scoring a goal.
Dan, it's the first time that Ipswich will have gone to the Etihad Stadium. The last time they were in Manchester, they were Main Road. In the Premier League, winning 3-2 in November 2000, and then in a League Cup tie, 2-1 the following month. It's their first meeting ever in the Premier League. So, what's your thoughts on this game?
Ipswich have won 3 of their last 4 against Man City, which is quite strange to see. But they last played in 2002, so it says everything you need to know about City and what they've done in their recent history. But I agree with Trev. I just think City at home, look, all the noise about the club and what they've done, we've all got our opinions, but on the pitch, they are a great side. And when they're at home, they score lots and lots of goals. I think Ipswich will struggle to get a shot on target, let alone a goal. So I've gone 5-0 Man City.
5-0 Man City. Alex?
Yeah, I agree. I think they're going to have a good season, Ipswich. I think they started off well against Liverpool, especially in the first half. So I think I'm excited to see them this season. But yeah, they're not going to get a sniff against City. So I'm going 4-0 City.
4-0 City. I've given Ipswich a hope. I've said they'll score a goal, but they'll concede 6. I've gone for 6-1 to Man City. I'd like to see them get a goal and give them some sort of hope. But I think it's just going to be an absolute trouncing of them. Trevor's back to you again. Southampton versus Nottingham Forest. They played 12 times. The last time at Southampton, it was 1-0 to Forest. And when it was the other way around in 2023, because of Southampton getting relegated last season, it was 4-3 to Forest. What's your thoughts on this game?
Well, Forest have got a good away record against Southampton, haven't they? I read your notes, Ferg. Did you notice that? But
Yeah.
they have got a good away record against Southampton. I like Forest. I like the way they're playing. But I also like Southampton. This is like I said earlier about the about what game was it? Fulham Leicester. I think this could be a really good game of football, one for the connoisseur to look at and think, yeah, this is proper end-to-end stuff. I can't see either team losing, but I can see both teams scoring goals. So I've gone for a 2-2 draw, Ferg. I've gone for a 2-2 draw. I just think that Nottingham Forest with their away form, but we all know Southampton have always been strong at home. They've handed us a couple of idings a few seasons ago. So, yeah, I've gone for a 2-2. I can't pick a winner.
Alex, can you pick a winner?
I can. I'll pick Forest to win. Not yet with Eddie Nketiah, but got to back them after they're taking him off our hands.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
But around £30 million for Eddie, that would be delightful. So I'm backing them for a win.
Yeah. What's your score?
2-1.
2-1.
I think they've got some good players, to be fair.
And all joking aside, with Eddie, I think Eddie is a good player. He is a very good.
He'll do
player.
well for them. I think he'll do really well for them.
Absolutely. I think at Forest he can be like a huge fish in that pond. So, and I think I wish him well. I hope he does well. I do hope he goes there as well. But that's for sure. Dan, your thoughts on Southampton versus Forest? Could Ramsdale?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, I'm with you guys on Eddie. Obviously, jokes aside, everyone wants him to do really, really well. He's a howling lad, come through the club. We want to see him do well. I think him with Wood up top, sort of big man, little man thing might work for them. But I also feel like he'll be second striker and be on the bench quite a lot. I'm not sure he's gonna go on to make a huge sort of career at Forest. But yeah, obviously, I wish him well and hope he does go there and we get the money and put it back into the club. But Forest are a team that I just think you can't predict. They're so up and down, hit and miss. I think they'll also still be not too far from the relegation zone at the end of the season. I just think Southampton are worse. I think last week against Newcastle, they played all right for the first 20 minutes, wherever it was, until a man got sent off. But even against 10 men, they didn't look great against Newcastle. And I think they'll struggle this year. So I've gone for a 1-1 draw.
1-1 draw. I before I read any of my notes or done anything, I predicted Southampton to win 2-0. So I'm not getting any points in that one, I don't think. There is one more game on Saturday. It's the Aston Villa versus Arsenal game. We'll cover that after. But Dan, I've got to come to you on the 2:00 kickoff. It's the one that's not on Sky. It's Wolves versus Chelsea. They played 20 times, and Wolves had the double over them last year. What's your thoughts on this game?
The Pedro Neto derby. I'd love him to get an own goal and Wolves to go and beat Chelsea. That would make my day, to be honest with you. But interesting, right? Leading on from what we said on Monday, and Trev said he'd spoken to a few people that said Wolves are a really poor side. I do also agree. I think they're not going to be great this season, Wolves. I just think with Gary O'Neill, they're just going to regress a little bit. I hope they can reinvest that money because they're actually not a bad club, to be honest. They've got a decent set of supporters whenever we go to their ground as well. I hope they can not get too far down the table, especially against Chelsea. The club is a mess. Whatever they want to say and whatever way they want to swing it, the way they've treated some of them players is disgusting. They're professional men that want to give their all about to play football. And I think about a week before the window to just cast half the squad aside is ridiculous. It's all financial doping and however they want to get around it, but it couldn't happen to a better club and a better set of supporters, if I'm totally honest. But we could, only one set of supporters, and that's probably the other lot down in North London. But on this one, I just get the feeling that, again, Chelsea have not clicked yet. So many players, so much to go wrong. And with Wolves not being a great side, I've gone for a 1-1 draw.
The Wolves have only lost... they've lost 6 of the 9 Premier League games away from home in 2024. No side losing more. They've not only lost 20 games at Molineux, so in the whole of 2023. So, at home, 2023, they were a much, much stronger team at home than they were last year. And you talk about Chelsea and the ever-revolving door. They made 4 club debuts against Manchester City, taking their total to 23 debuts since the start of last season.
How
5
crazy
more
is
than
that?
Yeah, I know.
How
5 more
crazy.
than any club who haven't been promoted. So normally it's promoted teams bring a load of new players in, but this is a well-established Premier League side. 23 debuts.
The shame is, Ferg, that you throw enough mud and something sticks, and one day something will click for them. But if any club doesn't deserve it, it's them. It's just not the way to build a football club.
No,
I'd be disgraced if that was my football club, and I'm so glad it isn't.
Dan, what was your score prediction again on that one?
1-1.
1-1. Alex, do you want to give us your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I mean, they're playing in 20 minutes, and I thought, that might have an effect on their game against Wolves. But then you look at their team, and they're playing like the 5th string. So they've got so many teams, like they just line up with a different team today. And it's just mental. Weird way to go about with a football club. He's really toying around with the club, isn't he? The owner. But I think I think defensively, Wolves actually looked okay against us. So I think I'm going for a scoreless 0-0 draw.
Trevor?
Oh, listen, I have to echo what Dan said, right? Because that Chelsea manager, I can't remember his name now, went on television. I saw an interview yesterday where he's actually saying, half of my squad of 40 odd don't even train with me. And his exact words were, I don't even see them, right? What kind of message is that? Not just to those that are not in his squad, but to the ones he is using at the moment. What kind of message is that to them? One bad game and they're out. You know, I mean, it's a club in a mess. It's a mess of a club. It's an embarrassment of a club. I feel for all them players. I honestly hope that Sterling stays there for the rest of his contract, sits in the stand and laughs while milking his 325 grand a week. I really do. I think Chelsea deserved that. They deserve that. They've treated their players despicably. And I hope it comes back and bites them firmly on the backside. I thought that Wolves did all right against us, like Alex said last week, without shining. And I didn't think we shone. And I didn't think they shone. I just thought that we looked a bit of a better side on the day. And I thought that both teams could have played better. There was more to come from the Arsenal and there was more to come from Wolves at the end of the game. And I can't see Chelsea turning up in the right frame of mind to beat Wolves. Wolves are going to be better at home. It's going to be a massive atmosphere. I think Wolves are going to turn Chelsea over. I nearly said then I worry a bit for Chelsea this season, but I don't worry a bit for Chelsea this season at all. I just think they're going to have a poor season. And I think Wolves are going to beat Chelsea 2-0. I really do.
2-0. Chelsea are winless in 4 games against against Wolves, drawing 1, losing 3 since the 5-2 victory in September 2019 under Frank Lampard. Like you, I think Wolves are a better side, more organised side, even though they're not great. I think they're better than Chelsea, and I'm going for 2-1 to Wolves. Dan, did you want to have a final word on this game before we move on?
Yeah, I just wanted to mainly ask you guys a question again. And just a reminder from the comments in the chat. Conor Gallagher, the way that they've treated him, an academy player, versus how we've treated our academy players, it's completely. Honestly, I can't believe that they would do that. And to see the Chelsea fans singing his name in the stands from them lot to even show a little bit of compassion shows exactly how they're treating their players. You know, it's terrible how you treat most players, let alone
even look at the Raheem Sterling situation. Like, you know, they stripped him his number and told him the Friday before the first game of the season, you're not required.
Yeah. How would you feel if that was your club?
Disgusted.
Look, right. I mean, I can remember back a bit longer than you guys, actually a lot longer than you guys. Chelsea have always been a classless club, right? They've been a yo-yo club, up and down, up and down. They've never had any quality or class about them. And then the Russian came in and brought them success, didn't he? There will never, ever be a greater example. It's a better example than the Man City one at the moment. He's gone. Oh, he's back. There will never, ever be a better example of a club that brought success than Chelsea. And it's coming back to bite them firmly on the backside this year. I really can't see what we're not insiders in football, are we? We're like fans that have got an opinion. Some of you have got great opinions, and then there's me sticking me 5 pence in, you know. But I can't see what they're doing. They've got all these players, and half of their squad now is thinking, I've not even got a squad number. Not even got a squad number.
Though, what you say, you can't see what they're doing, Trev. The owner, I think, is he a baseball owner, Alex?
Yeah, baseball, yeah.
And I think the way that that's run in the US is pretty much like draft football. Like, you pick the best star players, put them in the team, individuals that try and, you know, win you the game. Football doesn't work that way. It's not a team of 11 individuals. It has to be a proper team, of a squad, a management team, a club. And if the owner really thinks he's going to just put 11 star players together on a pitch and hope it works, I think he's got another thing coming. I think they're living off the back of the money that's come out of Abramovich. The fact that he wrote off the debt means they had about 2 billion income, which is why they can get away with spending it. But that will run out. There's only a few years for that window before they can start to have to make a profit themselves. So it will catch up with them within a couple of years if they don't turn it around. Hopefully.
Yeah, I hope it does.
Alex, Bournemouth versus Newcastle. It's on Sky TV, the 2:00 kickoff. They play 12 times. 2-2 last time at Newcastle, and the last time at Bournemouth, it was 2-0 to Bournemouth. Bournemouth are 19 of their Premier League goals, last 25 Premier League goals came in the second half. What's your thoughts on this game?
I really like their manager, Bournemouth, Iraola. I think he's making them overperform slightly. I think when I look at their squad, they haven't got individually like the best players, but as a team, they're doing really well. And they've brought in a new striker for Solanke, so I don't know whether he's going to start quite yet, but it will be interesting to see how they integrate him into the squad. But I think Semenyo is doing well in the absence of Solanke, and he scored in the opening game against Forest, where they drew 1-1. I think Newcastle did well to hold on to that 1-0 win when they got a player sent off. I think they're a good team, Newcastle, and they'll get Tonali back, their record signing last season. He'll be back next week, I think so. So they've got a good squad for the season. Gordon up front, Isak, brilliant player. Good defense as well, especially if they get in Guehi. I think they're going to have too much for Bournemouth, and I think they're going to win 2-1.
Wow.
2-1 to Newcastle.
Yeah.
Okay. Trev?
That's really interesting. I was so pleased that Newcastle won last week because it meant that the cheat never prospered, So I was really happy to see Newcastle win the game 1-0 against Southampton. But there's a massive difference between playing Southampton at a packed St James's Park and going down to Bournemouth, who are experienced in the league now. They've got some, experienced players. Absolutely, completely different challenge for Newcastle at Bournemouth. And I like the way I look at Bournemouth this season. I think Bournemouth are going to beat Newcastle. I really do. I know Newcastle got these signings, but they really struggled to beat Southampton, albeit with 10 men. I think that Bournemouth are going to be too strong for Newcastle, maybe, and too worldly wise. They've got too many clever heads at Bournemouth, and I think that they're going to beat Newcastle 1-0 this week.
1-0. Okay. Dan?
Well, I've gone 2-0 Newcastle, but I think some of the comments I'm going to make is probably a little bit against that. I actually think Bournemouth are a decent side. I just think they're going to struggle to score goals, and even more so losing Solanke. And I think they'll end up dominating this game. They'll have most of the game. They'll just end up missing loads of chances, and Newcastle will score on a counter and end up winning 2-0. But I think Newcastle will also be a team that grows into this season and has a decent season. I think they've got a really good squad. I think, as Alex said, they've got players coming back. They've got a couple of injuries and suspensions at the back of the minute, but when they come back, plus potential signings, I think they're going to do a lot better. I think last year in the Champions League took a bit out of them for where they finished, and I think this season you'll see them come a little bit further back up the table.
Yeah, Newcastle are looking to win their opening 2 Premier League matches this season for the first time since 97-98 when they were under, I would love it, Kenny Dalglish. So, yeah. So I'm going 3-1 to Newcastle. Dan, the last game of the weekend is Liverpool going to Brentford. They've played 6 times. Liverpool have never lost. We will do the Villa game, the Arsenal Villa game as well. It is the last game of the weekend. Trevor, get with the program. Dan, thoughts?
Oh, is Trev okay? It's just he's panicked.
Nice,
I know he loves to talk about his Arsenal, doesn't he?
Nice and calm. Breathe.
That's a man who loves the cannon on his chest, doesn't he? Really. I think Liverpool.
Sorry, what were you saying?
Have we lost Trevor, or is he back?
He's back.
I'm here.
Oh, I thought he was gone for good.
No one needs to go anywhere. I think Liverpool are actually going to have a decent season. I think a lot of people are writing them off because Klopp's left, but I think they've got a decent squad. I do think they'll end up adding a couple of players in by the end of the window. And I think if they get a couple of decent players in, I think they signed someone today, I think as well. But if they get a couple more players in, they might be a little bit further up the table. But I think there's no issue with them getting top 4. I think Jota, if he starts to centre forward and continues in that role, will have a good season for Liverpool. I think Salah will end up pretty much at the top of the scoring charts at the minute. And Diaz, I think on the other side, is pretty decent with Szoboszlai in behind them. So if they can play a bit more open attacking football, but a bit more controlled, possession based, I think they'll develop into a good side under Slot and maybe threaten to push the top two maybe next season. Brentford surprised me a little bit. I didn't expect them to win last week. I think when you look at their squad, it's a poor squad that overperforms week in, week out. And I think that's sort of testament to the manager. I think he's done a great job with Brentford. And a surprising stat I actually saw was they've had a recent better record without Ivan Toney playing than when he does play. And I think that just shows sort of the team spirit that they've got. And, the guys that can come in have got decent quality as well. So I do, however, think Liverpool will run them over this week at home. And I've gone 3-0 to Liverpool.
Trevor, in a stretch running back since 1939, Liverpool have won each of their 5 home games against Brentford, keeping a clean sheet every time. What's your thoughts and prediction on this one? Dan, what was yours again?
I went 3-0 Liverpool.
Yeah, okay.
It's a funny old one for me to get my head around this, because Liverpool, they won last week, but there wasn't a challenge really at Ipswich. They were away at a club. Like I just said about the previous game, Liverpool were away at a club that had no Premiership pedigree, just touching the ground and feeling the ground and seeing where they went, and Liverpool got the win. But I didn't think Liverpool looked brilliant in winning the game against Ipswich. I thought they just did what they needed to do. They weren't bad. But I'm the opposite to Dan, and I don't know why, right? I haven't got no facts, figures, or names or nothing, but I think that Brentford are going to go all right this season. I really do. I just think they've got a good setup, and they're going to test good top teams. They're going to test top teams, and this will be a right test for Liverpool. We'll get a much better indication of where Liverpool are after this game against Brentford than we did the away game against Ipswich. So I think more out of hope, really, but I don't like picking Liverpool to win, and I should, but I'm not. I'm going to go 2-2 draw, Ferg.
2-2 draw. Okay. Liverpool have lost only 2 of their last 61 home games in the Premier League, winning 46, drawing 13. Alex, what do you reckon?
I agree with Trev. I think it's going to be a bigger test for them against Brentford than it was against Ipswich, but I don't think they'll completely run them over. I think they'll win 2-1, and I think Mbeumo will get the goal for Brentford. That must count as a bonus point if I get that one right.
But if you get it wrong, you lose a point.
Oh,
There we go.
Are you pressing the button, locking it in?
locked in.
Okay. I've gone for 3-0 to Liverpool. I didn't, whilst they won against Palace, I didn't rate Brentford hugely at the weekend. And I think, it's all a bit funny at the minute, because even you saw ourselves against Wolves last week, Declan Rice go down with cramp. You can see that these none of the players are up to, it's almost like pre-season sort of match fitness rather than actually ready for the season match fitness. And I don't know if it's the Euros and timings or whatever, but it just does seem really, really strange. Guys, we're going to talk about our game, Aston Villa versus Arsenal. It's Saturday. It's 5:30. Trevor can't make it because, he can't make it. I can't make it either.
She knows, like you can say. Yeah, she knows that. She knows that.
I was trying to say that. I realised it's a surprise birthday party. That's not a surprise for Donna.
Listen, I know we're running a bit late, right? But you just made you made a really important point. You can come back to my beautiful wife in a minute if you want, right? But the more I think about Rice last week, the more I worry, because the bloke was a machine last season. 95, 100 minutes a game, he did not stop, did he? Every game, he never let up. And it's the important point you make. First game of the season, he gets cramp. That's worrying for me. That really is worrying.
Just proves they haven't had enough rest, or they've had the rest and they're not back up to full match fitness again, So, they've had 2 weeks
but then
off.
There's Saka.
Yeah.
They're what?
Then there's Saka. I mean, he didn't look tired at all, did he?
Don't worry, lads. Listen, if we've just signed Marino as well, that's a great player that can switch in and out with Declan Rice, with Partey, with Jorginho. We've got Havertz that can drop in there if we need to. We've got plenty of options to rotate, which is the best thing. Our squad is looking strong and looking world class. So if players like Rice need a rest, we can now do it. So
right, I need to ask a question now about players. Then Ferg, I'll shut up, I promise. After watching last week's game, are you still as desperate, or do Arsenal still need to sign a striker?
For me, yes. Not that the need to sign a striker. I would just like us to have that option of a number 9 when we're up against a team like Ipswich, who are going to put 11 men behind the ball, or Brentford, who are struggling. You're going to be up against those teams that you're going to struggle against. I would like us to have a striker, to have another option. When we run out of ideas, when Jesus eventually gets injured, because he does struggle to stay fit, and if Havertz is having an off day, Havertz done great in 2024. And I hope he carries on that great form. But it also helps in taking some of the attention away from Saka and giving him some more freedom if you've got a point man from him to put those crosses in like he did to Havertz as well. Anybody else on that one?
I think that is a brilliant question that divides our fan base. And you won't find in a room a set of 4 people that are going to agree on that. I think we do need a striker. I think if we need a striker, if we're going to go and dominate and win things like the treble and the Champions League and that sort of thing. But I think what Havertz has done is delay the need to have it this season as an urgent matter, and meant we can actually address other issues before we address the striker situation. And I think in midfield, bringing Marino in will be a great one. Calafiori coming in has been great. I think there'll be an in and out for a goalkeeper. And then the next one is, do you choose a winger or a striker? And I think it's a case of we'll pick the best player that's available. And if a winger is available, we'll go and sign a winger. If a striker is available, we'll go and sign a striker. It just means the club is not desperate. We don't have to overpay. There's not 100 million being spent on a player that's coming from a different league that needs to adapt. It's if the right player becomes available, we'll go and get them. And I think I trust the club to be able to go out and get those players. In the meantime, I think Havertz has been plan A and plan B. He can play on the floor, he can make runs in behind, he can drop deep, but he's also great in the air, can hold the ball up. And he looks quite sort of lanky and a bit sort of as if he doesn't care. But I tell you what, he's a strong boy and he's great in the air.
Yeah. Alex, we looked like we were going to buy Sesko at the start of the window. So that would make you think that the club think we need a striker.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with some of the things Dan said. I think it's about getting the right deal for a player. But I actually do feel like at the moment, I really feel like we need a backup for Saka, because we haven't really got anything similar to him on the right wing. Yeah, Jesus can play out there, or Trossard or Martinelli, but it's just so different having a left-footed right winger than having a right-footed. So I would really like to see like a backup player who can go in and do some of the same things as Saka can do, like cutting in on the left foot. But yeah, it's all about getting the right deal. I think Havertz can be our main man, and I think his numbers the last 6 months kind of shows it as well. He's got more than a goal involvement per game. So I think he can be our main man, and I can't really see anyone at the moment who I'd bring in and play instead of Havertz. It's
There's definitely one, Alex. There's a big Swede that could play up top if we could get him.
Look.
Isak.
No. How do you pronounce it? Is it Gyökeres or whatever his name is?
Gyökeres.
Yeah, I'm not a Scandi, I can't pronounce it, but I think he'd be brilliant.
I think he'd be a good player. I just wouldn't be sure that he'd like be better if we dropped Havertz and then played him. Like, I don't think he'd be massively improving our squad. I think he'd be like a good.
He's a player that will develop, right? This is why we wanted Chesko, is being a player and it can make an impact now.
I agree.
And develop for the future. And I think he would be a player we could bring in, and in 1, 2, 3 years' time would be a deadly centre forward.
I agree, but I don't think like we'd bring him in now and then he'd go and win us like the Champions League or the Premier League this season. But I agree. I think over the 2-3 years, like Chesko, I think he can be like a world-class striker and has like a different profile to Havertz. But I can't see us bringing in anyone this season who can be better than Havertz is at the moment.
Listen, see, Ferg, this is exactly why I asked this question, right? Interesting listening to the lads, because, my view has always been that we need a striker, but we need a striker as a plan B, right? Well, for me, last week, in just one game, really, with the runs he made and the goal he scored in particular, Havertz sort of become that plan B, right? Havertz sort of shown me that he's capable of being that plan B.
It's happened again. You've agreed with Dan.
You see, the thing is, though, right? Listen, let's just say this: we're all right. We're not desperate, like the lad said. We're not desperate because if Havertz plays up front, right, in the position he played, that's the only position he can play for me, right up there, making those runs, being the big lad up front. We've got a plan B then, because if he's not playing well, we can bring on Jesus or we can bring on Trossard, and it changes our forward line completely. So for me, signing a striker has taken a backward step maybe to go behind signing another winger. Now, I think we're heavily laden up front as it is. And the thing that worries me, if someone comes in now and plays, and takes over from Saka, comes on when Saka's tired or whatever, people are going to give him hard time because there ain't another Bukayo Saka on this planet, boys. There is not another Bukayo Saka on this planet. So the bloke that comes in is going to have a job and a half to do, not just to get a place in the team, but to win the fans over. Because if anyone that comes on as a replacement for Bukayo Saka ain't going to be in that quality.
Is that not where Nwaneri comes into it? So where he can work his way up through the squad and eventually, as Saka, matures and everything else, he takes over the line. Listen, Villa Park.
I love how you pronounce his name, Fergus. I really do. It's quite.
I pronounce them all uniquely, so that's it.
Nwaneri.
Nwaneri. Yeah,
he's friends of Aunt Nori.
Yeah, that was funny. That was funny. Arsenal have won 14 away Premier Leagues at Villa Park. The only other place we've won at one single venue like that before is Selhurst Park. And Aston Villa done the double over us last season, but it accounted for 40% of our defeats. We only got defeated 5 times last season. 2 of those were against Villa home and away. They've never beaten us. Well, the last time they've beaten us 3 consecutive times in the Premier League was 2001 and 1993. Trevor, I'll come to you first. It's no order. What's your thoughts on this game? We played them 58 times. Villa have been in the league for forever. They disappeared down a little while about 10 years ago, but they've been back and they're growing. They've got a good manager and they've got a great forward in Ollie Watkins. What's your thoughts on this one?
We spoke about this game at length, didn't we, on Monday,
Yeah.
And I'm really worried. I'm more worried about this game than I'm about the Tottenham and Man City games. Honestly, I am. Because I know what's coming against Tottenham and Man City. I know what's coming, right? I don't know what's coming against Villa. If they play like they did last season and they're organised and they've come on again, they're so hard to play against for the Arsenal. So hard to play against. And I do worry about that manager because Emery he's got it in for the Arsenal. He's going to have it in for the Arsenal because we didn't, he didn't come off here and he's come off everywhere else he's been. The only amount of hope I've got is that we've also got a clever manager in Mikel Arteta, and you can rest assured he would have studied those 2 losses to Villa last season. And I would imagine that he's been drumming that into the players' heads this week. He's very good with the psychology stuff, isn't he, our manager, Mikel Arteta? You've got to pick a pocket or 2 and all that, He's very good with the psychology stuff, Arteta. And I think that is key to us winning this game this week. Put those 2 losses last season to bed, get them out of the players' head, and just get our players out there playing at their very best against Villa. And hopefully we'll be better. Our plan will be better than the Villa's plan. I really hope. I think that's what it's down to. I think both managers have a plan and hope that our plan is better. Villa are a very good side. I have a lot of respect for Aston Villa. A lot of respect for Aston Villa. I've put down here that the Arsenal are going to win 2-1 against the Villa. But my confidence levels are low. It's one of our very hardest games of the season. Very hardest games of the season.
Alex, we've won 8 out of our 9 Premier League games in 2024, only drawing 1. So we're unbeaten away from home, scoring 28 goals. Conceding 3, keeping 7 clean sheets. The stats are great. But like Trevor said, this one does worry me. Is it too early in the season? Is it the perfect time of the season? Who knows?
Yeah, you never know. But I do. I paid myself to watch the highlights of our away game to Aston Villa last season, and we really should have got a point at least from that game. there were some questionable decisions. I think Jesus maybe should have had a penalty in that game. And yeah, they scored quite early on and then just sat back and did well defending. But I really think we're going to win this game, boys. I'm quite optimistic about this game. I think they did well, Aston Villa, to get past West Ham in the first game, and we know they've got a good manager, but I think they've sold Diaby, who I think is a really good player, and I think Ollie Watkins massively overperformed last season. I can't see him having near enough the same season this season as he had last season. I think he's a good player, but I think he massively overperformed last season. And I can't really see who the other players are that are going to make up for that, like, overperformance from Watkins. Bailey, he's not quite prolific enough to add in the goals. Then there's Morgan Rogers. He's a good player, but quite unfinished product. So I'm not sure about Villa, and I just think we're going to win this game, and I think we're going to win 2-0.
2-0. Watkins is not going to have what was the quote you said? He overperformed.
Overperformed last season, yeah.
Okay, Dan, follow that up.
Well, where do I go from there? I mean, I agree with the score. I've gone for a 2-0 Arsenal win, but it's not going to be easy. But I do disagree with Trev here that I don't think it's due to the manager. I think I've said this a few times. I don't rate Emery as highly as Trev does. I think he's got an upper limit, and I think Villa are his upper limit. I think he's worked wonders with a smaller team, and he's got them into the Champions League and had a fantastic season last year. But I think they'll struggle again this year. I think they'll drop off from being in the Champions League, and I think that's his ceiling that he's got. He takes a team that's on the edge of Champions League and takes them into the Champions League. Great at what he does. I don't think he'll ever be a Premier League winning manager. So I do sort of agree a little bit with Watkins that he's overachieved, but I think he won't have as big a drop off as maybe Alex thinks. I think he shocks me at times with how good his finishing is, how good he is back to goal, his runs behind. He's a complete striker, and I tell you what, if we was to sign him, I'd be over the moon. I think he'd fit in really well with our team. I think Rogers had a good end to last season, slotted in well this year. I think he's moving into the number 10 position this year for Villa as well, off of the left that he was at the end of last year. You've got McGinn in there as well with Tielemans, and they've signed Onana, so they've got a great midfield. But for me, the game's going to be won for their right-hand side against our left-hand side, because if you look at the average positions of their squad, Bailey stays high and wide on the right, and Zinchenko comes inside. So if Zinchenko starts on the left-hand side, he's got to have a brilliant game up against Bailey, because if not, they will exploit that space. But defensively, we are a very, very good side. I don't think there's a better defensive side in the Premier League than us. So I back our boys to go there and get a clean sheet. And I think we're even better going forward. I think at the point we went there last year, we was in a bit of a rut in terms of form. Worst part of the season for us last year against Villa in the best part of their season. And I think it's a bit of a one-off. So I think we're going to win 2-0.
Trevor, people talk about Watkins, but what about Duran? He's the second best minutes per goal ratio with 6 goals for every 103 minutes. Only behind Haaland, who's at 85 minutes per goal. This guy scored in the opener against West Ham. A good signing. Do you worry about him?
Fuck you. Listen, mate, you know what I'm like with players from other clubs. I ain't got a clue.
Who?
You know, I honestly, I know I should study other clubs more, but I'm an Arsenal fan.
That was the bit in yellow as well.
I'm an Arsenal fan. That's what I talk about, the Arsenal. That's what I know about most of the time, the Arsenal. I'll tell you what, though, I know I do agree with this comment from Arnie. What a top lad Arnie is. Yeah, Arnie, you have no idea how difficult that is, my son. You have no idea how difficult that is. And no kind of psychology works, Arnie. No kind of psychology works. But honestly, for going back to what you said, mate, I know I should study more for this show, because we've done this preview show and you boys get all the stats. But I don't, because I can't. If I start thinking about other clubs, I get bored, because I'm not interested in them.
Paperless, Fergus, you're killing trees.
The strange thing is, right, listen, the strange thing is, we said this on Monday, similarly. I agree with everything Dan says about Villa, right? Because we said the same last season. Everything Dan says, I agree with. Can't argue it. But I said the same last season, and they went and beat us twice. They've got, and we'll have to. We agree to differ all the time, Dan and me. We love each other, but we have to differ on Emery. Emery's a very clever man. A very clever man.
Right. So I've gone for 1-0 to the Arsenal on that one. We've got Alex with 2-0 to the Arsenal. So has Dan, and Trevor's gone 2-1.
Final prediction. Speaking on Watkins, he had 32 goals and assists last season. How many do you think he'll end on this season?
19 goals.
Goals and assists.
Goals and assists. I'm going to go for 26 goals and assists.
25. I don't care.
Watkins.
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to have as good a season. 20.
I'm on the same as you, Trev. 20. I think 15 goals and five assists.
I don't know. You could be losing a lot of bonus points at this rate anyway, Alex.
I know. I'm risking it all here.
You are.
Right.
You are.
He's going to fucking score a hat-trick, isn't he, this weekend?
Wasn't there a couple of other predictions we were going to do tonight, lads? I know it's running on a bit, Ferg.
No, well, we haven't done them because we were going to do those at the beginning of our Monday night show. That was what we thought.
Oh,
when the transfer window shuts.
Yeah, when the transfer, because it was all about who's going to be the. Dan, explain what your thoughts were on this one then.
Ferg, what Trev's just done there is genius. He's slid it into the end of the podcast saying we're going to do it in a week or two, and then the viewers will come back and watch it. Come on, get with it.
Yeah, true. It's been a long day.
We are going to do a little bit of a preview, a bit similar to what Sky did, but better than Neville and Carragher because we've got Fergus and Hilsey. And we're going to do a prediction on where we think who's going to win the league, top 4, Europe, best signings, worst signings, etc. See if Trev can study a bit of Duran and not Duran the band, but the player. And yeah.
I nearly
need to find out.
I nearly said that's cracking then, Dan, but you saw enough of my crack the other night, so I'm not saying that.
We all did.
I got pulled up on another pronunciation. I don't care anymore. I really don't care. Martinez in goal for Villa tomorrow. Boys at the Arsenal, make sure you sing up like this. Trevor, Dan, Alex, I know we've overran. Thank you very, very much.
Wow.
Can't wait to sing that on Saturday.
Old Trafford away last season was the best away end I've been in a long, long time. So proud of the Arsenal fans. So
we got a lot of people watching. A lot of people watching on Twitter right now. You do know, we got comments coming in there. If you do want to make your comments on Twitter as well, and your predictions for the next, we won't be here next Thursday, I don't think, unless the two. But we need to take this offline. But I'm not available, and Trevor's not available for next week, unless you two want to do it.
That could be fun, couldn't it? I've got a stand-in.
Okay. Right. Okay. Well, apparently there will be a show next week. Let them sort it out. But yeah, if you are on Twitter and you do want to put your predictions in, make sure that you do put them in on Twitter as well. But ideally, what we'd like you to do is go over to YouTube and subscribe to us as well. Thanks very much, guys. Been brilliant. Oh, Jesus, Trevor. I said an hour and 15.
If anyone puts a prediction on Twitter that anyone other than Arsenal are going to win the league, we're going to block them, right? They're gone.
Hang on, boys, hang on. We got Fergus and we got Trevor.
Colonel
Thanks for listening to Guns and Yellow Ribbons, an Arsenal podcast by Arsenal fans for Arsenal fans. Follow us on Facebook at Guns and Yellow Ribbons or Twitter at Guns and Ribbons. And remember to rate and review us too. Up the Arsenal.